with that, let's begin our next session, a very, very special program. If this is your second, third, or fourth TiCon, you've been to this before. This is a breakthrough session. It is indeed a very special program because this is not about technology. This is not about a kind of a special company that's been formed and so on, but it's about individuals that have made a difference in the world. This is a tradition that started at TiCon in 2012, and we've had some really, really big names, folks that have come from all walks of life, and today is no different. Let me take a minute and talk about, for those, this may be the first time, who are these breakthrough thinkers? You know, breakthrough thinkers, they think differently. They're not ordinary, not the mundane, not the normal, and certainly not the average intellect or intellectual that we deal with perhaps on a daily basis. They make us rethink foundational principles, they reimagine the world, and they make us help make the world a better place. These are folks that follow the theme that we have for the event. They dream, they change, and they inspire all of us. They are really the breakthrough thinkers. They embody this theme, for sure. So with that, let me introduce the first speaker today. We have three speakers. The first one is Anjula Acharya. And she comes from a walk of life that many of us engineers in the room enjoy, but don't necessarily participate in the vein on a daily basis. She's an entrepreneur, a philanthropist, an investor, and most importantly, a pop culture enthusiast and a difference maker. She founded a media company called Desi Hits, which helped drive diversity into, watch my words, diversity into global pop culture, introducing artists like Lady Gaga and Britney Spears to the emerging markets like India, China, and others. And something you all must be very proud of, we as Indians certainly are, she has helped Priyanka Chopra become a mainstream brand in the US, and thus paving the way for many others to follow from the South Asian community here in the US. Currently, she's a partner at Trinity Ventures with an advisor to several companies. And she has a very, very long list of awards. If I went through all of those, you'd be listening to me and not to her, so I'm just going to do some very quick ones. She was in Billboard's 2014 International Power Players list, Vanity Fair's list of titans disrupting media technology and culture, one of the 2010 Game Changers by the New York Enterprise Report. Forbes listed her as a power woman in their Power Woman Summit, and top 50 women in music by the Billboard magazine. So a long list of accolades, and then there's many more. And moderating the conversation today is Vinita Sud Billari. Vinita is a founder of the creative artist founder for Enact Media, and she'll be moderating the conversation. She herself is a computer scientist from BITS Pilani, which some of you might be from, and is now in her second career and will be moderating the conversation. So please, big round of applause for our first breakthrough thinker today.
Good afternoon, everybody. Having a good time? Well, if you're not, you're about to.
I hope so.
Yes. Anjula, in certain circles, you have this moniker, Queen Maker. Lady Gaga, Britney Spears, and definitely Priyanka Chopra, and then in a whole completely different genre, Payal Kadakia. So if you're young, beautiful, South Asian, and your name starts with P, then Anjula can make a queen out of you. Is there anything else in the formula?
Not everybody begins with P.
Okay.
I think that I just got good at picking stars, and I say that it doesn't matter to me whether you're a tech star or a pop star or a rock star, or whatever star you are. I think if you've got that inner star quality, I'm destined to find it.
Okay. I watched an interview that you and Payal had done together, and you said the most important thing for an entrepreneur is talent and perseverance. Actually, she said that. Did you see that in Payal when you first invested in her company?
I always talk about what I look for in startups or what I look for in people, and often it starts with a culture shift. And with Payal, I thought she was onto something really good because she was onto a culture shift. So what I mean by that is when she founded ClassPass and when she first came to me with the idea, I noticed in pop culture people have shifted from talking about gyms to talking about classes. So what I mean by that is I would say to people, oh, what gym do you go to? And they would say, no, I don't go to a gym. I go to like SoulCycle, or I go to Barry's Boot Camp. And I saw this happening more and more, and people were dropping a lot of money to go to classes. So I thought to myself, if somebody could devise a platform that would allow that to happen more smoothly and democratize classes and make them more cost effective and bring them to the masses, that would be a great thing. I can't say that I could articulate it that way then, but I definitely saw this shift in culture, in fitness culture. And when Payal came to me with this idea and she talked to me about actually building the open table for classes, I just knew she was onto something. And then it came down to her, and definitely I saw a star in her, and I thought that she was one of those people that would just keep fighting, and she did. She pivoted the company twice before it got to ClassPass, and she was just really able to see the vision through. And then talking about that cultural shift again, I started managing Priyanka 3 years ago, and we worked on music and we worked on fashion, and it was the same sort of like process that went through my head when everybody was talking about pop culture and they were talking about TV shows. And I'd go out for dinner and people would be talking about Game of Thrones, or they'd be talking about Scandal, and they'd be talking about How to Get Away with Murder. So, I said to Jimmy Iovine, who is my mentor and my partner on Priyanka, I was like, you know what? I think she needs to be on television. And also to really infiltrate pop culture, I think what's also very interesting is that right now people, and millennials in particular, have very little commitment to things. So like back in the day, people used to be like fans of, pop stars, and they were committed to those pop stars and their albums, and they would buy everything. But I find that that's not the case anymore. People are very committed to one-off things. So like, I like this one song, but I'm not necessarily in love with this artist. And I think the only place where I'm seeing people really deliver commitment is to TV shows. So people are binge watching, and they're spending, like 8 hours watching one TV show. So when I saw that cultural shift, I was like, we need to jump onto this, and we did, and it worked.
Great. So we've got a little bit of background about two queens that you made, but some might call you a queen yourself. So can I take you into your journey? In 2006, you were a senior partner at an executive search firm, and then you suddenly decided to give it all up and form this amazing company called Desi Hits. What was going on in your head when you decided to form a company that sounded so South Asian, but eventually had a reach that was so amazingly global?
It was actually an accident. So, me and my co-founders at the time, we were all really obsessed with the fusion of music, particularly hip hop with Bhangra music and sort of house music with, Bollywood beats. So we just started putting these podcasts out, which was a fusion of this music. And at the time, I met a couple of venture capitalists who I was working with, and they actually just kind of really pushed me to build a company out of it. So that's kind of how it really started.
In 2006, you started a radio podcast, and you ended up raising $5 million for this idea. How did you do that? I mean, how could you convince,
I have no idea.
male VCs in suits sitting across a desk from you that you needed $5 million for people to listen to Indian songs or Bollywood or fusion songs on radio?
It's so funny when you look at all the challenges women have today in raising money. I have no clue. Like, I look back at that time, and now I say to all female entrepreneurs, whatever you do, don't think about it. Don't think about the 4% of women are venture funded. Don't think about how tough it is. Don't think about the fact that you're maybe not Ivy League, or you're never been an entrepreneur before, or whatever you think you've got going against you, because I had all of those things against me. Just don't think about it. And I honestly just didn't think about it. So I think that's how we did it.
And so that's your mantra. Don't think about
barriers.
Think about the passion. Think about what you're creating.
Right.
So what happened with Desi Hits after the $5 million in funding.
Yeah, so after the $5 million funding, we built a platform which was reaching South Asians all over, and we actually had a very big crossover audience as well. And then I met an individual called Jimmy Iovine, who is the founder of Apple and Beats by Dre, founder of Beats by Dre and Interscope Records, which sold to Apple, obviously. And he really took me on this journey of sort of cross-cultural content, and you know, it just kind of really grew, and that's how I took Lady Gaga to India and took Enrique Iglesias to India and 50 Cent, and I started building this sort of cross-cultural exchange. And then Jimmy and I worked on Slumdog Millionaire soundtrack together, and we did the collaboration between Pussycat Dolls and A.R. Rahman, and that was when we came up with this idea to bring Priyanka here.
I'm going to read a quote that you did in print, and I want you to speak to it. That's only because all the audience here is South Asian, and this is a South Asian entrepreneurship conference. The South Asian demographic is 1/5 the world's population. They're all over, they're eclectic, they're bicultural, they're bilingual, and they're not just interested in one type of content. You said that a while ago.
I did, I still believe it.
So was that sort of the driving, you know, cross-cultural, let's blur all the borders geographically between pop culture, and was that really what was driving you at that point?
What was driving me was that I grew up in England many years ago, and I grew up in a really racist environment, and the only images I saw of South Asians on television were extremely misrepresentative of us. They were derogatory, they were grossly stereotypical. And I don't actually have a problem with stereotypes. What I have a problem with, and I'm sure all the South Asians here do too, is that it's a singular story.
Yes.
And we are not one thing. Yes, you can take a stereotype and you can exaggerate it and say, my mum is like that, or my uncle is like that. But that's not all we are. You know, my mother may dress like that, but she also works every day as a nurse or does a gazillion other things. So I just really had this desire to change stereotypes within pop culture around our people. And I've been driven to do that since I was a child, because I feel like pop culture is wholly responsible for the way I was treated as a child. And I don't want anyone to experience what I experienced.
Awesome. Well, you've done an amazing job at it. Let me congratulate you.
Still trying.
Moving on to some of the other investments that you made in other people, like Payal, for example.
Sure.
Would you be able to share with the audience some of the numbers of the growth of ClassPass and, you know, just everything that's in public information? We don't want you to share anything private, but it's such an amazing story that we want to start with the numbers first.
Sure. I actually can't share the numbers.
Okay.
Not without, because Payal was supposed to be up here and she would have shared the numbers. I don't know what I'm allowed to share and what I'm not.
I'll share the numbers that I found on the internet.
Okay.
It was started 5 years ago. Payal said it took her 3 years to get the model right.
Right.
And now it's valued at about between 400 and 500 million.
Okay.
So people say. That's a pretty impressive track record. Do you?
Yes, I mean, I invested at a 4 million pre and was trying to get everybody to invest with me at the time, and nobody would listen. So yeah, it's been an incredible growth spurt.
And now that we've seen ClassPass success, are people more willing to jump into investment deals with you when you say that's going to be a good one?
Absolutely.
And
I think the challenge with me, though, is like, it's so funny. So I work at Trinity Ventures, and if anyone here has been to our fund, they'll know that everybody there is super smart, and they're really good at explaining, like, oh, I like this company for this reason. They can break it down, but I'm terrible at that. I'm really good at just saying...
It comes from the gut.
Right, I have this visceral reaction. I remember when Jimmy Iovine showed me Lady Gaga, he showed me her first music video that nobody had seen, and innately I took that video back to my office, and we all just sat there and we said, she's going to be the next Madonna. And I thought, you know, Payal was going to be a huge star. I thought Priyanka was the only person that I met from Bollywood that I thought could really cross over in a really meaningful way.
Like I said, Queen maker. You listen to your gut, and your gut is always right.
Right. Well, I mean, I would say it's always right, but...
Tell us about the times when it's not right, or hasn't been right for some reason, and you've had to analyze why.
Right, well, you know, in some senses you could say Desi Hits wasn't a success. I didn't have a huge exit that I can brag about, unfortunately. So, you know, it's funny actually, when I met Jimmy Iovine, who was a strategic investor in Desi Hits, he said two things to me. He gave me a chunk of money, had breakfast with him and Jay-Z, and then afterwards he said to me, you know, Anjula, I don't think Desi Hits is going to work. And I was like, you just gave me a ton of money. Why would you say that? And he said, look, I know pop culture and you're just too early. And he said, by the time the market is ready for you, you would run out of steam and you would run out of money. And the money we can solve, but the steam we can't. And he was right. And out of that pivoted Priyanka, and lots of different things came out of that, which was amazing and a great journey for me. But ultimately, you know, I got the timing wrong. You know, advertising online in India was incredibly nascent at the time. It was just way too early. And I said to Jimmy afterwards, so why are you funding me if you know this is not going to work? And he said something really beautiful, which was, he said, I don't invest in singles, I invest in albums. And to me, you're no different to any music artist that comes in here, and maybe I won't like their first single, but I'll love their album. So yeah, I think
so he thinks with his gut too.
Right, oh, absolutely. No, for him it's totally like his gut. Like he
I
said
was going to ask if that was a men are from Mars, women are from Venus kind of thing, but I guess
no.
That's...
He said to me that everybody laughed when Eminem came in and he signed Eminem, and he said everybody laughed when he signed Priyanka. Who's laughing now?
I think everybody in the room wants to know the whole Priyanka story. You know, from start to finish. How did you get in touch with her? How did Quantico happen? And where do you see her going next?
Right. Well, so before I was even in this business, I saw Priyanka on a movie called Bluffmaster, and she was singing a song.
Good job.
Right.
Yeah.
She was singing a song with Abhishek Bachchan, and I thought she was just really
That's
cool.
my daughter's favorite song.
Right. So I thought she was super cool, and I remember just making a mental note going, God, if I was ever in that business, she would be the person that I would want to work with, because she had this very global sensibility about her, which was evident in all her work, I thought, anyway. So that was many years ago, and then as I mentioned before, Jimmy Iovine and I did music for Slumdog Millionaire, and we were top 10 in 10 countries with the collaboration we'd done between A.R. Rahman and the Pussycat Dolls. So we were like, what's next? And what I said to Jimmy was, I hate the fact that, you know, when South Asian things happen, it's this pop and then it goes away. And he was like, so let's change that. And that's what he does, he changes things. So we started, he said, you know, what do you want to do? And I said, you know, there's this actress called Priyanka Chopra. I heard a rumor that she could sing. I don't know if she can. Should we look into it? And he was like, go get her. So I got a demo tape from the producer Salim and Suleiman, and at the time I was working with them and Lady Gaga, so I already had a connection with them, and because we'd been working with them, and they sent me Priyanka's demo tape, and I was like, wow, she can really sing. So next thing I know, I was on a plane to Mumbai to meet with her. I had a long phone call with her first, and then I went out to Mumbai to meet her. And I convinced her to come on this journey with me. And she kept saying, why me? What is it about me? And I was just like, I think you're amazing. And I think you are the person that can just really take India global. Awesome. And for me, it was never about, you know, it was very much about not sort of taking her out of India, but bringing India to the rest of the world through her.
Well, you did a great job. So we have half a minute left. I'm going to ask you a question. You say very often that you blur borders geographically, diversity. You also blur borders with tech. You are now a partner in a VC firm in a very tech environment. You deal with arts and celebrity. Very inspiring for people like me who run arts organizations. Do you have words of advice for people who want to be art/tech rather than just tech? What does that world look like?
I think the world really looks like that. I think when you look at companies like Hulu and Netflix and Amazon that are, you know, huge distribution platforms that are now creating incredible content. I mean, look at Netflix, for God's sake. I mean, that was a tech company that created House of Cards, you know. So I think it's already happening, and I think the world already looks like that, and I think it's incredible, and it's creating immense opportunity for people and content creators to work with, you know, incredibly talented tech people to create something amazing.
Excellent. One line of advice for tech entrepreneurs amongst us.
Believe in magic.
Oh, believe in magic. that is the mantra that we want to end this fabulous conversation with. Thank you so much for being here. And congratulations for everything that you do.
Thank you. Cheers. Thanks so much.